Check, check, mic check. Check, check, mic check. Welcome to Podcast Envy. I'm your podcast boss, Andrea Klunder. I'm going to be honest. I have not been feeling very bossy lately. It's been like psychological survival mode over here at the Creative Impostor Studios. And yes, that sounds dramatic. And no, nothing awful specifically has happened. I am genuinely grateful for my health, my family's health, my friends, my clients, and for podcasting, as weird as that might sound. And that's why I'm here with you now. Yes, things have gotten shaken up. You ever play that game Yahtzee? Or for those of us growing up in Michigan, it was Kismet, at least in my family. But anyways, that game where you have a scorecard and you take turns shaking 5 dice in a plastic cup. They rattle around, you roll them out, and then look for patterns that you might be able to score with. You take the dice that don't fit the pattern, then put them back in the cup, and try twice more until you either do or don't get what you want. You could either win big or take a big fat zero for your turn. Yeah, that's what I feel has been happening. You just don't know what you're going to get from moment to moment. In all seriousness, I have been busy over here releasing more content than usual on my other show, The Creative Impostor. We've been doing a series on how creative entrepreneurs in different niches have been pivoting, adjusting, taking care of their businesses and themselves through all of this global crisis. And I am just celebrating 100 episodes over there for that show, which is huge. And I have been so grateful for my show as the central structure around which I've been orienting my weeks. Knowing what days I have what interviews and knowing that I am going to make that genuine connection and create a piece of content that is going to be helpful for other people to hear has been so worthwhile. Additionally, I have podcast clients who have been addressing the needs of their specific communities through their shows, and I'm really proud of some of them. I'm telling you this because this show, Podcast Envy, is not just about how to make a podcast, but it's also about the culture of podcasting. And I wholeheartedly believe there has never been a better time for podcasting. I've heard other podcasters complaining in groups and online forums or wondering why their download numbers are, well, a little lower than usual. Many new podcasters are wondering if they're doing something wrong. I've heard reports from various analytics sources saying that listenership is down across the board, unless, of course, you happen to be in the categories of religion and spirituality, kids and family, or news. Not surprisingly. I've had some clients put a pin in their shows while they figure out what's happening with their operations and their finances. And of course, no shade to anyone who has had to take a break. Things are unusual right now. However, I am here to tell you right now that if you already have a show, a following, an audience, a community, they need you more than ever right now. Here's a clip from an interview I did with wedding planner Ivy Summer on The Creative Impostor, episode 98, which of course will be linked conveniently for you in the show notes for this episode at thecreativeimpostor.com/pod-envy-058 for episode 58. Here's Ivy.
It can be really hard as a planner to really know everything a couple is going through right now. And it's important for us to really get to know what and how those couples are thinking, to be able to craft messaging that speaks to them and speaks to them in a way that addresses their emotion. It is not the time to not send out that newsletter. It's not the time to take a break on Facebook Lives. This is the time to jump on and have live Q&A, because it is about just reaching out, whether it be by email or on Instagram or on Facebook or through WhatsApp or whatever method. to be able to respond very quickly to what they need, because it's not only about the message, but it's how you respond to it. It's about how we communicate, and especially in a timely manner, because everything is urgent right now.
So while Ivy wasn't talking about podcasting specifically, but rather social media and whatever your connection methods already are in general, the message is that now is not the time to leave your people hanging. And if you haven't started your podcast yet, you might be thinking, that's all well and good for people who already have a show, who already have an audience, but now is probably a terrible time to start a new show. And you should probably just wait until all of this passes. Again, I say, if you have the time, the resources, the headspace, and you are crystal clear on why you want to create this show, this very well could be the perfect time to start. And this feels like the perfect time to introduce you to today's podcast angel, Libsyn. Podcast angels, as you know, are those companies, products, services, and resources that help financially sustain Podcast Envy and the Creative Impostor Studios. And if you've been listening to Podcast Envy for a while, you are no stranger to why I love Libsyn's podcast hosting services. They take care of all the techie RSS feed stuff to make sure my shows are good and correct and get where they need to go all day long. But did you know that their president, Lori Ann Sims, is an awesome human as well? She's not usually in the spotlight. She typically leaves that to Elsie Escobar and Rob Walsh, co-hosts of Libsyn's podcast, The Feed. But here's an excerpt of an email that she sent when all of this COVID stuff started to go down in the US. And I quote, "On behalf of the Libsyn team, I would personally like to assure you that we are committed to supporting you and your podcast during the ongoing coronavirus COVID-19 outbreak. We will continue to provide reliable and robust podcast hosting services during these trying times. For the Libsyn team, it is business as usual, and we are prepared to execute our day-to-day business remotely at a time when flexibility is so important. Your words matter. Your voice and podcast can be a lifeline for many people. Podcasts deliver the comfort of a friendly and familiar voice at a time of uncertainty and when personal contact and connections with communities may not be a possibility or an option for some. Your voice may become more important than ever in helping people feel connected, whether providing a sense of community, informative content, or entertainment. Each of you can be a lifeline for those affected in all parts of the world." End quote. Right now, you can get started with Libsyn's hosting services, and your first month is free when you use my promo code ENVY. Use the promo code ENVY, get 1 month free service, and support Podcast Envy at the same time. Brilliant! In all seriousness, you can be a lifeline for those affected in all parts of the world. I know personally, I have been listening to even more podcasts than I usually do to keep myself entertained or calm or inspired or informed. There are several podcasts that I've been listening to who have been covering current events, not necessarily from a newsy perspective, but more from whatever their respective area of expertise is. So, for example, I've been listening to the HBR Presents After Hours from the Harvard Business Review, and they've been covering economic and business implications of everything that's going on in a really wonderful way. I've also been listening to a podcast called Strangers Abroad from Adrian Bain, which, as the title implies, is all about travel and the people that you meet when you are far away from home. And though it's a little bittersweet to listen to right now, it is a wonderful escape from feeling cooped up during shelter in place. And I have been listening to some gorgeous meditations from the Intuitive Woman podcast with Tina Conroy, a good pod friend of mine. And Tina's meditations have been helping me shift into a more peaceful, less anxious state at the end of the day so I can sleep. Some of us have been getting more downloads and or personal interaction from our listeners and our communities than usual in the past weeks. I had a chance to talk with Tina on the Creative Impostor, episode 95, and here is a clip not from the episode, but from my conversation with her, in which we were talking candidly about whether it makes more sense to put out more content right now, less content, or just stay the course. That's kind of how I felt like, okay, I'm going to put out some more content than usual. Even if I have less listeners, I think it matters more to the people who are listening than normal.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's kind of my primary hypothesis, is that for anybody who's making content right now, even if your overall numbers are less, the importance of it and how much it's impacting the people who are listening is greater.
Yeah. You could see the trend, and I could see the numbers, and I could see they're looking at other things. They're not just looking at the last episode. They're going all the way to this meditation or this meditation. So
right. They're like digging deep back into the archives.
My downloads aren't crazy. I don't have 40,000 downloads and all this, but I can even see when it drops on Tuesday morning at 4 a.m. to Wednesday morning, like, oh, wow, that's 24 hours. There's a big difference than what it was. The other thing that I'm getting, and I think it's about the impact, is I got a lot of emails this time because I send out an email list once a week about the podcast, the episode. And I got people to email me back. Thank you so much for doing this. So they've been listening, but they never really, I guess, email me back. And like, that meant so much just to hear, like, thank you so much for doing this. This really helped me. I've been listening to this every night before I go to bed. Oh my God. One person, like, thank you. That it makes all the difference.
So if you are a current podcaster or aspiring podcaster and you're feeling a little lost right now, one, go download some meditations from Tina on the Intuitive Woman podcast, and then meet back up with me. And here are some ways that maybe I can help you. And don't worry, all of the links are conveniently located in your podcast app show notes for this episode. Number 1, Wednesday, April 29, 2020 at noon Central Standard Time, I am offering a free Launch Your Podcast class for aspiring podcasters inside the Creative Impostor Facebook group. You do need to join the group to participate in the class. It is free. You will be able to chat your questions to me if you show up live, and I will do my best to answer them. And then the video replay of that class will stay up in the group for free for 24 hours after the fact. And if you have missed it, no worries. You can still get the class if you hop over to thecreativeimpostor.com/craft and culture. That's my little corner of Patreon, a platform that exists to help creators keep creating. You can join my resource group there for $5 a month or upgrade to VIP for $19 a month. Cancel anytime, and while you are a member at either level, you will have access to the class as well as my curated list of getting started resources and my Podcast Envy Craft and Culture email that usually only goes out to my Creative Impostor Studios clients. Number 2, Saturday, May 2, 2020. I am offering another free class in the same format for both new and current podcasters called Get Better Interviews. Obviously, this is for you if you want to make your interviews better than they are now, or if you are thinking about adding interviews to the mix for the first time, and you don't want them to be a miserable or boring experience for you, your guests, or your listeners. That class, once again, is free inside the Creative Impostor Facebook group for 24 hours and then available to my Craft and Culture group on Patreon. Number 3, if you need something a little more custom tailored for your show and your situation for a limited time, I am offering one-off deep dive consultations in the Creative Podcast Laboratory with me. You can schedule your time at thecreativeimpostor.com/in the lab. And finally, number 4, if you want to find out how we can work together either to help launch your show Or for consulting and editing services, book a free 20-minute call with me to share your vision and get some next steps. That's at thecreativeimpostor.com/T420. That's TEA, like that delicious hot beverage you can sip, FOR 2020. Okay, there you are. A bunch of resources, a bunch of links, a bunch of ways you can connect with me. In conclusion, this whole episode boils down to this. What is that abbreviation? TLDR, too long, didn't read? We need one for podcasts. TLDL, too long, didn't listen? As Lorianne Sims from Libsyn so eloquently said in her email, your words matter. And as your podcast boss, I say, use your podcast to amplify your voice so that those words can reach more people. They just might make all the difference in someone's life right now. Podcast Envy is produced by your podcast boss, Andrea Klunder. That's me. The Podcast Envy theme music is by Valentin Sosnitsky, courtesy of the Free Sound Project at freesound.org, and our podcast Angel music is by Benjamin Mastropolito, also on freesound.org as Lemon Cream. All music is licensed under the Creative Commons. Our episodes are mixed by Edwin Ruiz, and hey, if you want your show to sound as good as ours, hire us. Put the magic audio mojo of the Creative Impostor Studios to work for you. Thanks so much for listening, and here's to making your podcast the envy of everyone else.